Growing up, I was a really big fan of the Power Rangers, so much so that I wanted to become just like them. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't ever able to become a Power Ranger because, Power Rangers aren't real. But that didn't stop me from going on the journey to finding my special skill that I could use to contribute to society. However, it's on that path to success, on that path of finding your own special skill, where something very dangerous can happen. And it's none other than My Hero Academia that steers us away from this danger through its hidden message. But what is that danger? What is that message? Well, first, let's go ahead and take a look at what My Hero Academia is in general. My Hero Academia is a series written by Kohei Horikoshi, published in Shonen Jump in 2014. 2 years later, getting an anime adaptation of the same name. The story of My Hero Academia takes place in a world where 80% of the world's population is given a special ability called a quirk. This makes it possible for people in this society to become a superhero. We follow our main character, Izuku Midoriya, otherwise known as Deku, trying his best to one day become a hero. The only problem with that is he's a part of the 20% of the world without a quirk. Now, if we relate quirks to real life, we'll start to see that it's kind of a metaphor for having a natural ability and or skill. For example, if Michael Jordan was an MHA, he'd probably have a basketball quirk. If Michael B. Jordan was an MHA, he'd probably have a handsome actor quirk. And if your mama was an MHA, she'd probably have a so fat quirk. I'm sorry, he just be coming out of nowhere sometimes. I honestly apologize. Anyways, throughout the first episode of My Hero Academia, where Deku is told that he's not gonna make it as a superhero. But even with all that being said, Midoriya keeps going. Midoriya keeps trying. Midoriya gets told by the #1 hero that he's not gonna make it. Now, right off the bat, that's way worse than finding out Power Rangers aren't real. Like, that's like Jay-Z pulling up to the hood only to tell a 14-year-old SoundCloud rapper that he's not gonna make it. If that was me, I'd be hot. Like, I'd probably just throw in the towel. And so did Midoriya, until his childhood friend / bully, Bakugo, was captured by a sludge villain. Now, what makes this scene absolutely integral to the hidden message of My Hero Academia is the fact that every single hero in this situation counted themselves out because they didn't have the right quirk for the job, including the #1 hero, All Might, the same hero that told Deku he couldn't make it. All they could do was just wait for someone else to come with the appropriate quirk. Whoop, there goes Deku. With no special ability, no skill, no quirk to call his own, Midoriya saw himself as fit to saving his friend. Now, in hindsight, this was a very stupid idea on Midoriya's part. However, it was just stupid enough to inspire All Might to take action, defeating the villain once and for all. After seeing this episode, I think it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to say that due to Midoriya not having a quirk and or a special skill of his own, he didn't have a mental roadblock stopping him from taking action. While on the flip side, the heroes in the heat of the moment identified so closely with their quirk that they couldn't see themselves doing anything else to help. It is at this point, as early as episode 2, where we're finally introduced to the danger that My Hero Academia constantly tries to warn us from. The danger of limiting your sense of self to what you're good at doing. Needless to say, in the world that we live in, you're rewarded for your unique skill set. And as humans, we tend to see that unique skill set or ability as a marker for our intrinsic value. But that's when you fall into the trap. The trap of attributing your whole entire identity to being good at something. It is this exact ideology that My Hero Academia looks down upon throughout its narrative, popping its head around the corner as character flaws. And this is especially true for Bakugo himself. When we first meet Bakugo in My Hero Academia, he's kind of a jerk. He does nothing but bully Midoriya for not having a quirk of his own. But later on, when we start to see more of Bakugo as a character, we start to realize that his bullying comes from a place of misguided personhood. Ever since Bakugo was a kid, he was always told that he was going to be great, specifically because of the quirk that he had. Surprisingly enough, however, it's that exact praise that held Bakugo back, as he believed it was his quirk that made him worthy as a person. Now, if we follow that metaphor to its extent in real life, we begin to see the dangers of this ideology, as it causes you to not only look down at others for not having your amount of skill set, but for you to look down at yourself once you realize that there will always be someone just a little bit better than you. In the beginning of the series at least, this is why Bakugo is so hungry for the #1 hero spot, because if he's #1, nobody else can take his value away from him. However, it doesn't just stop there. The poisonous ideology of relating who you are only to your talents also affects other characters as well. For example, Todoroki. In a way, Todoroki has two quirks, fire and ice. However, he refuses to use his fire quirk because he feels like it ties him to his abusive father. However, once Midoriya told him that it's actually him that shapes his quirk, it was at that moment where Midoriya set Todoroki free. Now hold that thought for just a second, because first we have to talk about another character. A minor character, but a character that is so vital to developing this message in My Hero Academia that we can't go without talking about him. And that character is none other than Shinzo. Now, although Shinzo didn't completely fall into the trap of letting his quirk define who he was as a person, he was definitely totting the line, as many of the people in his life constantly remarked how his mind control quirk was more fitting of a villain than a hero. However, after his fight with Deku, he realized that that didn't matter and there was still space for him to become a hero, symbolized by Deku literally pushing him out of that line of thinking. It is from Shinzo's arc as a character we're given the blueprint of what makes a hero in My Hero Academia and what makes a villain. Heroes shape their quirk, while villains let their quirk shape them, letting their quirk plant them in a place of society rather than choosing that place for themselves. Characters like Shigaraki, Dabi, Twice, Toga, Redestro, and even All For One himself fall into the trap of letting their quirk define who they are as a person. So it only makes sense for our hero of the story to be someone that can clearly see these distinctions because he's never had a quirk of his own, instead receiving a quirk that he has no choice but to shape. It is at that point we can come to the understanding that Midoriya in My Hero Academia works as a shining beacon of light, not only saving people's lives but setting them free from the weight a quirk can have on their identity. And as with any work of fiction, it's that same beacon of light that can reach us as well, because if heroes in My Hero Academia are a metaphor for an ideal type of person, it is Deku who shows us that it's actually not the talent that makes that person ideal. Instead, it's their willingness to act on the behalf of others, and that's something that we can all do. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, okay? Because I didn't learn this lesson until much later on in the narrative. And that's because I wasn't really too attached to any of the characters starting out. That was until we finally came across my favorite character in the whole entire series, Mirio Togata. Mirio is introduced to the story as your typical upper classroom strong senpai character, and he proves this by beating the absolute dog water out of all of his other classmates. However, the draw to Mirio's character actually isn't in the strength of his quirk, it's how he was able to get that quirk strong. Mirio's quirk is permeability, meaning that he has the power to phase through objects. However, this means that when he's permeable, he's really permeable, meaning that everything passes through him like air, light, and sound. Yeah, he's got a very difficult quirk to use, but even with that being said, Mirio tries his best to become a strong hero, and now he's the closest thing to being #1. And I felt a connection with that because I saw his permeation quirk as a metaphor for my own skill in art. When I first started drawing, I sucked really bad. However, as I kept pursuing it, it's something that I got better in. And this is something that I can heavily relate to Mirio's journey as well. But then later on, in a desperate attempt to save a little girl, Mirio was shot with a bullet that erased his quirk. All of his hard work, all of his talent, gone in the blink of an eye. At this point reading the story, I was convinced that Mirio was just going to give up. Now, I mean, come on, Midoriya was on his way, so narratively speaking, it made sense for him to come in at the last moment where Mirio was in complete despair. On top of that, I wouldn't even have blamed him. I was sitting there thinking, like, what if I one day just lost the skill to make videos or lost the ability to make art? What type of person would I be at that moment in time? And to be honest with y'all, I couldn't immediately come up with an answer until I flipped open to the next page, to where the words of Mirio hit me like a truck. None of what I've done is a waste. I'm still Lemillion. Despite Mirio losing his quirk, he still saw himself worthy of being a hero. And he fought for 5 minutes without a power just to prove it.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Peak fiction. You know, as people, we have this little voice in our head that's constantly trying to connect our self-worth with our skill set, constantly asking us to validate its existence through perpetual success. This is especially true for many content creators, as we feel that the success of our art says something about who we are as a person. But maybe that talent for you isn't art like it is for me. Maybe it's your grades, your social skills, or your ability to make money. Whatever the case may be, just knowing that your intrinsic value isn't based on your ability to do that is extremely freeing, because it's that mindset that allows you to go beyond what takes you to greatness. And that's what I believe to be the hidden message of My Hero Academia. My name's Fitzy Allen. Live in love and have a good day. Peace.